Strange happenings on a strange island. Rocky added some more wood to the fire, looking over at Zuma. He was stretched out by the fire, warming his paws up. "Good, you're up." "I was starting to get worried," said Rocky, walking over the Zuma. It takes a little more than a freezing water rescue to take me out, said Zuma, puffing out his chest. Yeah, right, said Rocky, nudging him. If I hadn't gotten this fire started, you would have died of hypothermia. Well, props to you for that, I guess, said Zuma, smirking. Props to me. I saved your life, said Rocky, putting a paw to his chest as if he was offended. And I saved Yao's, so now we're even, said Zuma, licking Rocky's cheek. Their playful banter was just a way to hide the fear they both felt for the other's safety. Now that we've finished cheating death, what do we do? Asked Rocky. I think we should explore the island and try to find out where we are, suggested Zuma. Good idea, but maybe we should find some food first. I'm starving, said Rocky, stomach growling. What food? We're on an island in the middle of nowhere, questioned Zuma, exasperated. Good point, admitted Rocky sadly. We'll just have to tough it out. Come on, let's go explore, said Zuma, walking towards the cave entrance. Rocky thought about putting on his suit but decided against it. It wasn't made to keep you warm. Rocky followed Zuma out of the cave, carefully arranging the brush back around the door. The wind had stopped whistling, and the waves had calmed down. There was still a lot of snow on the ground though. This is going to be hard to walk through, commented Zuma, pulling his paws out of the snow. Let me see something. Rocky's paws began to glow. A glowing ball of green appeared in the sky. A shovel should do the trick, said Rocky, forming a glowing green shovel with his powers. He then looked it over. It'll do, he finally said. Rocky sent the shovel ahead of them, clearing away the snow as they walked. Rocky and Zuma looked around, taking in their surroundings. Not that there was much to take in, mind you. It was nothing but a vast expanse of white, which blanketed everything. After walking for a bit, they stopped for a rest. Honestly, I was expecting more, said Zuma dryly. Yeah, me too. It's going to be so boring waiting for Ryder to find us. Agreed, said Zuma. As the duo stood up, Rocky tripped over something. Ow, said Rocky, yanking back his paw. There was a small laceration on his skin, and it began to bleed a little. Whoa, dude, you gotta be more careful, said Zuma, bending his head to lick Rocky's paw. Some Zuma had licked his cut clean. Phew. That should help, he said. Thanks, Zuma. It feels a lot better now, said Rocky, examining his paw. What did you trip over, dude? Inquired Zuma. That dumb rock over there, said Rocky, pointing a paw in the direction of the rock. Zuma glanced at it and said, You mean this one, he said, pointing. Yeah, that one, why? It's just a rock, Rocky said. No, it looks more like a square, said Zuma, looking at the rock more closely. IG whoop. Big whoop, a square rock, said Rocky sarcastically. Zuma pressed the rock with his paw and it sunk into the ground a little with a grinding noise. I don't think this is a rock, it looks like it's a trigger of some sort. Zuma looked around. There's another one, said Zuma, running over to it and pushing it down with his paw. There's one right over there too, said Rocky, catching Zuma's excitement. He pressed it, and like the others, it went down a little with a grinding noise. What do you think they do? Asked Rocky. I don't know. Maybe they are switches to a sequid in twants or something, like you see in the movies. 1. That's preposterous, said Rocky, watching Zuma go over to another stone and push it in. These rocks totally don't do any. The rest of what Rocky was going to say was lost to the ages as a large square rock rose out of the ground. It had a picture of a dog carved into it, and it was made from the same material as the other stone. What were you saying? Said Zuma, smirking at him. Rocky's jaw hit the ground. What, how did, he babbled. Zuma walked over to the raised stone switch. Hey, Rocky, there's a symbol carved into the stone. It looks like a pup tag. Rocky cautiously joined his partner. What? Oh, it really is, said Rocky. The symbol looked like a pup's tag with 3 arrows going in circles around it. It looks just like your pup tag, said Zuma, bouncing around excitedly. This doesn't make any sense. Why is this here? Said Rocky confused, one paw touching his pup tag. Does any of this make any sense? No, it doesn't. But you're Hugh for a reason, and I intend to find out why. Come on, Rocky, put it in the slot. Well, okay, but if this goes bad, it's your fault, Rocky warned him. Fine, now put it in already, exclaimed Zuma. Rocky unbuckled his pup tag and nudged it into the slot. Nothing happened. Humph. It thought something was going to. The large stone began to open up from the middle, going out towards the sides. Dust fell into the cavern and there was an eerie glow coming from it. My tag, exclaimed Rocky, who quickly withdrew it from the slot it was in. The hole slowly began to close. Let's go, Rocky, before it closes. I can't. We don't know what's down there. And we'll never know if we don't jump. I, said Rock, panicking. Looks like we're doing this the hard way. So just before it shut, Zuma pushed Rocky in and jumped after him. The fall wasn't far, and there was a bed of leaves conveniently placed at the bottom. They both managed to land on their paws, Rocky with extreme grace. Dude. That was totally uncool, said Rocky, flustered. Yeah, maybe, but you wouldn't have gone otherwise. You could have gone by yourself. And let you miss out on all the fun? Never. Seeing Rocky glaring at him, he whimpered and bowed his front side, ears against his head, looking submissive. I'm sorry, Rocky, but I just have this feeling that we need to be here. I just don't know what came over me, it was like I needed to push you. I'm sorry for being a bad pup. Zuma whimpered. Rocky's heart melted seeing Zuma like that. Oh, Zuma, you're not a bad pup, you're my best friend. But don't do that again. Zuma sprang back up and bowled Rocky over, licking his face incessantly. Okay, I forgive you, now please stop. Zuma stopped licking him and just stared into his hazel brown eyes with a goofy, grateful smile on his face. Rocky looked up at him and smiled, red just barely tinting his cheeks. Zuma licked his nose and got off of him. Let's go explore, he said, walking down the narrow passageway. Wait for me, said Rocky, getting up to catch up with Zuma. The two trotted down the hallway as silently as they could. As they rounded a corner in the passage, they noticed what the walls were made of. Zuma, this looks exactly like the meter in the lookout. You're right. It is the same stuff. Rocky and Zuma placed their paws on the massive meteor and their paws glowed. I feel more connected to my powers, Hugh, like I have more control over them, said Zuma, drawing water from the air to prove his point. I could never do that before. He trailed off, looking at Rocky. Rocky was looking straight ahead of them. Look, Zuma, there's the source of the light, said Rocky, picking up the pace. As they traveled a little farther, a golden glow washed over them. This must be the center of the entire structure, observed Rocky. Every path connects here. As he looked around, he saw multiple paths branching off from the room they were in, going different directions. In the very center of the room was a circle with symbols carved into them that looked intricate, but neither Rocky nor Zuma could figure out what they meant. Zuma, I feel weird, my head hurts, mumbled Rocky, collapsing on the ground. The glow in the room reached an almost unbearable brightness. Rocky, what's going on? Said Zuma fearfully. I feel like something is separating from me, like I'm being emptied. Rocky, we should get out of here, this place is doing something to you. Zuma went to help Rocky to his feet, but Rocky began to levitate off the ground. Zuma just stared at him in awe. The white light that had filled the room was offset by the emerald green color that started emitting from Rocky. Rocky looked around in fear. This isn't natural, why is this happening? Then Rocky heard a voice. It's okay, it'll all be over soon. The voice sounded like Rocky, but Rocky, wasn't saying anything. Rocky was slowly placed back on the ground. Zuma ran over to him. Are you okay, WHOA? What happened to you? Rocky looked semi-transparent. I feel so empty, what's going on? Rocky said, looking down at himself. I can see through myself. And I can't feel anything, it's like no, it can't be. Zuma, am I a ghost? Am I dead? Zuma's heart leaped in his throat for a minute as he looked at Rocky. No, I don't think you're dead. He mumbled, not really sure. No, Rocky, you're not dead. Zuma and Ghost Rocky jumped back in fright. Rocky, that sounded. Rocky finished the sentence with him, just like you slash me. All right, I've had my fun, I didn't think I could scare myself so easily. Rocky slammed his not there paw down on the ground. You'd better show yourself and give me back my body. A figure emerged from the light and sat down beside them. It was Rocky? The pup looked exactly like him, except he was pure white instead of gray. He too was semi-transparent. Goodness, it took forever to get you here. Creating hurricanes without you isn't easy, neither is controlling an entire ocean easy either. And I almost couldn't get you to jump down into the hole, but our friend was very useful for that. Oh, and Zuma, he said looking at the amazed brown lab, thanks for keeping him safe, or us safe or, sorry, having two of the same pup, it's kind of hard to tell who I'm talking about. I made sure to keep you alive, even though you almost froze to death. What are you talking about? Spluttered Rocky, inching closer to his double. Who are you? As I said before, he said, I am you. Now listen, I'm going to tell you what's going on. And please don't be afraid of me, I'm not going to hurt you. And I'm not going to hurt you either, Zuma, you're my best friend. Now sit tight, I'll tell you what's going on. Rocky calmed his breathing, and Zuma sat down very close to him. Before I begin, I'll tell you my name. Even though I'm you, Rocky, things might get confusing concerning who's being talked about. So for all intents and purposes, you can call me Michael. Rocky's Past Part 2. Mears was the god of this world. Now he wasn't like you probably imagine an all-powerful god being. He wasn't calm and serene, floating over a cloud, watching his creations do whatever, occasionally striking down the wicked with lightning. No, though he was wise, Mears was more like a playful grandfather. He didn't stay up in the cloud all day, he'd rather live with his creations. Mears did have a throne though. In fact, this room that we are in is the throne room, said Michael, gesturing to the room they were in. Wow, said Rocky and Zuma, looking down at their paws. So I have some of his power in me, asked Zuma. Yes, you do, replied Michael, smiling gently at him. Me too, asked Rocky, tail wagging. Well, you are a special case. Your power is represented by me. I am your divinity represented as you. So, do I have a spirit double too? Asked Zuma, looking around for his copy. No, said Michael. Why not? Asked Zuma, a little disappointed. I'm getting to that, hang on. Mears had infinite forms, so sometimes he was a human, sometimes he was a bird, but his favorite form was a dog. And lastly, Mears was not immortal. If you stabbed him through the neck, he would die just like every other creature. But because he had control over everything, if anything happened to him he would just heal himself, because for Mears to die, it had to be instant, sudden, and lethal. Lots of people think that God is, but the truth is, everyone has an appointment with death, even the creator of life. Except his death was a little different. Every time Mears died, he grew a little stronger. Like the phoenix, he was reborn, but not from ashes. At the place of his death, a massive lightning bolt would strike down, birthing him again from the heavens. Mears had died lots of times as a pup, as he was always getting himself into trouble. But every time he died, he retained his memories of his past life, even though he had to start life all over again. But one thing was significant about his death. Every time he was reborn, he would grow a little stronger. But the more power he gained, the harder it was for him to stay sane. The amount of power he had driven him to something called power sickness. In short, power sickness is when the amount of power you have goes to your head, and the power controls you, primarily your emotions, instead of you controlling both. So Mears created an amulet to store to hang around his neck. He charged the amulet with the essence of peace. The amulet counterbalanced his powers, which kept him in control, but it also limited his power. Okay, that's a nice story, but what does this have to do with me? Asked Rocky confusedly. Yeah, agreed Zuma. I'm getting there, hold on, said Michael, albeit a little impatiently, licking his paws. One day, as Mears was mingling among his creations, he heard incessant whining from the woods, which were very close to the city. He ran over to see what was going on. Not that he didn't already know, but sometimes he really disliked being all-knowing. It ruined surprises and changed decisions. It makes life boring to live. So he blocked his omniscience and followed his ears to the cries. He found a dog who had fallen into a large hole in the ground, and a tree had fallen over it, trapping it inside. It was a cinch for Mears to lift the tree, even though he was still in his dog form. The dog he saved was a female dog named Marina. Marina, who had no idea who Mears was exuberant at being saved. Marina asked Mears to help her get back to her owners. Mears agreed to help her and brought her back to her owners, who were overjoyed to have her back. When Mears left, Marina asked where he lived, so she could visit him. Mears, who still hadn't told her who he was, said that she could meet him by Duckling Lake every evening before the sun went down. Marina did just that, and every day for 2 years, she met with her God, creator, rescuer, and best friend. Marina and Mears fell in love, which was something that Mears had always wanted to do. But seeing as to how he was a god, everyone was too intimidated by him. Except for Marina, who he still hadn't told of his identity. Eventually, the love between the two blossomed, and Mears proposed to her by Duckling Lake one night. Marina was happy to accept, and it was then that Mears told her of his identity. Marina was shocked, and wouldn't believe it until Mears lifted her into the air with his mind. Still, this revelation stopped nothing between the two, and the two were married 3 weeks later, though Mears told Marina never to tell anyone who he was. 3. Ah, he found true love. That's so sweet, said Zuma, wiping a tear from his eye. It is, but that's not how it ends, resumed Michael. Marina wanted a family soon, and she became pregnant soon after. Mears and Marina were very happy. That is until tragedy struck. Their pup was stillborn. Marina pleaded in tears for Mears to save him, but that was the one thing Mears couldn't do. Mears could have resurrected his son, but his power was inhibited by the amulet he wore around his neck. Marina didn't understand why he couldn't take it off. Mears knew if he took it off, he'd immediately lose his mind. Marina refused to bury her son. Mears kept the body from decaying, and every day for a week Marina visited him. Mears knew Marina would never be the same again after losing her son. So on the 8th day, he took a deep breath, and with cheerfulness, he didn't feel told Marina that their son could be saved. Marina was overjoyed and licked Mears all over. Mears told her that he loved her very dearly and always would. Marina thought he was just expressing his love for her, but she should have known sometime was wrong when he said that just out of the blue, but she was too happy that her son could be saved for that. Mears told her that he needed some privacy, so he told her to go a little ways away, and when she saw the second lightning strike, to come up to the mountain. Marina looked perplexed but obeyed. Mears picked his son up in his paws, cradling him as a tear slipped down his cheek. A life for a life, he thought. Then he held his son up to the sky, channeling down a massive lighting beam from the heavens. Just before the lightning bolt hit them, he pulled off his amulet and placed it on the ground, unleashing his true power. He immediately succumbed to power sickness, but it didn't matter. The lightning beam washed over him and his son. The lightning killed Mears instantly, but almost before the first lightning stick was over, another beam of lightning flashed from the heavens, trying to rebirth its master. The lightning beam hit Mears's stillborn child, who he had placed in front of him before his death, and absorbed into his body. When the strike was over, the cry of a healthy puppy rang out across the still air. Marina heard his cries and ran up the hill, nuzzling her resurrected son and licking him all over. Then she saw Mears, and her heart caught in her throat. He was laid out peacefully on the ground, fur smoldering. Marina tried to shake him awake, but there was nothing she could do. Mears was dead. Then Marina noticed a note that Mears had left, a little ways from the strike zone. She padded over to and read its contents. The note that he'd left behind helped to lessen her grief. It said that he had been reborn in his son. The only way for him to save their son was to sacrifice his life for his. His life-giving essence and his memories were reincarnated with him into the blast, along with a little of his character. But his body was gone forever, along with his mind. His divinity fused with the spiritual side of his son, seeing as to how he was born of divinity and dog. In closing, he told Marina of his undying love for her, and how he would see her again someday. Marina smiled, looking at Mears reborn in her son. Then a powerful green light emitted from him. A snow-white figure stepped out of him and put on Mears' amulet. The amulet turned intangible, like the rest of him. He smiled at Marina before receding into her son. Marina buried her husband on that mountain. She took the best care of her son as she could, but all too soon, she caught a terrible sickness. The vets couldn't figure out what it was in time. Marina died soon after, Mears' secret dying with her, and her son was sent to the adoption center, finished Michael. Zuma stared at Rocky with his mouth open wide. "What are you staring at me for?" he asked, perplexed. "You still don't get it, dude, do you?" said Zuma faintly. "Get what?" asked Rocky, the wheels beginning to turn in his head. "Mears's pup reincarnated and resurrected is you," finished Michael. Rocky passed out. Rocky's Past Part 3. When Rocky woke up, he was on a very soft dog bed, with Zuma sleeping beside him. Rocky looked around nervously. He didn't see Michael anywhere. Maybe this was all a dream, he hopefully thought. Then he looked down at his paws. Still semi-transparent. Ah, damn it, he thought, hopes crushed. Michael is still around somewhere. Then he felt a tap on the head. He slowly looked up. Michael was hovering about a foot above his head, staring at him quizzically. "Good morning," he said cheerfully. "To be honest, I don't know if you were just tired or too shocked." "Both," moaned Rocky. "You know, I still have a lot of questions, like, how did Mears' throne get here? How are you orchestrating these events? How do you know all of this?" Yes, I know. But it's not my fault you're prone to fainting, and Zuma was really mad at me. He said I'd done something to you when you left the waking world. It took me a while to calm him down, had to show him you were still breathing and things. Then Zuma wouldn't let me get close to you, so I had to wait for him to fall asleep. By the way, tell him to stop trying to bite me. We're both his best friend, but he seems to like you more, admitted Michael. Then Rocky noticed what was hanging around Michael's neck. Is that the amulet of peace? Asked Rocky, touching it with his paw. Yeah, it is. I need to keep it on, or the chaos inside me would filter through to you. Gods are powerful, yes, but even they have limitations. Are there other gods out there? I'm not sure. Mears believed he was the only one, but there may be. I'm probably the only god for billions of light years in every direction, he said, landing down beside him. You mean we? Okay, we need to make this clear. When you were born with a divine and dog side. I am your divine side. You are the dog side. But together we are a demigod of sorts. So in the short space of time that I will be out of you, anything relating to God or powers or anything along those lines means me. Oh, okay, said Rocky, but why are my two sides separated? When Mears reincarnated in you, your divine side separated from the fleshly side. I had to separate to hold him. Otherwise, the mortal part of you would have been destroyed. Only divinity could hold its own. But now that I hold his power, when I reconnect with you and give you his power, you'll be fine. Rocky. You're alive, barked Zuma, jumping up and hugging Rocky tightly, tail wagging. He was now just waking up. As I said before, but no, you wouldn't listen, mumbled Michael to himself. Okay, fine, you were white. But even you must admit that this is a very shocking revelation. I was quite worried about him, said Zuma, licking Rocky's cheek. Rocky's normally gray cheeks showed hints of red in them as he wiggled out of Zuma's grip. Good to see you to Zuma, he mumbled shyly, embarrassed. Rocky was not a pup for attention. As to your question on how Mears' throne room got here, it happened when the meteor shower hit Adventure Bay. That piece was just a smidgen of this room. Of course, the impact of it hitting the ground caused it to tunnel up under here, and there is sustained damage to the room. You'll also like 18.4M415K. Yeah, but what about the secret passageway and the door with my pup tag on it? Okay, so another thing about me. I can only separate from you where there is a massive amount of heavenly energy around. The first time I left you was when you were resurrected, and I needed to retrieve Mears' amulet before I went insane. I was able to because you harbored a great deal of power after being resurrected. When the meteor shower hit Adventure Bay, you eventually brought the space rock into the lookout. It gave me just enough power to leave you for a short while, 1 hour to be exact, to leave you. You were sleeping at this time, so you never noticed. I needed to find out where Mears' throne room had fallen. Luckily, I could sense its power here. So I quickly covered it up before anyone found it. This would raise a couple of questions from the public that I'm not answering. I created the stone switches and the master door because I knew I'd have to bring you here to explain your origins. The door had the pup tag slot in it so that you'd have no doubt that you were supposed to come down here. Except you're a very doubting person. So I subconsciously controlled Zuma into pushing you in here. You can do that, said a very angry Zuma. It was very hard, but yes. And it helped that you already were thinking about pushing him in there yourself. This shut Zuma up, earning him a glare from Rocky. Well, there goes your saving grace, he said dryly. Anything else you wanted to ask? Michael said. Yes, for things actually, replied Rocky. For things, I thought I was very thorough. He murmured wearily. 1. How do we get of this island? 2. How and why did you control the weather in Zuma while being in me? 3. Why are you telling me this? 4. Am I going to stay like this forever? Said Rocky, looking at his ghost paws. Okay, in order. 1. I don't know. You figure it out. 2. I had to create the hurricane to wash you up on this island. And I had to use Zuma to push you in, or you would never have gone. I can use my power without you knowing, or helping, albeit this was the most I've ever done. Using our power without your help weakens me immensely. And I was fighting against Zuma to create and sustain the storm. That's why I couldn't help you when you began to drown, I was too drained. But, the same pup that stopped me from helping is the same pup who saved you. So thanks again for that, Zuma, he said, smiling kindly at Zuma, who looked like he was about to spring at Michael. Rocky wasn't looking much happier, but he looked more thoughtful. So what you're telling me is that you almost drowned us, and mind-controlled me just to get him here. I wasn't supposed to happen to you, he said weakly. So you do admit to doing it? Sorry? Michael squeaked. I know I sound kinda evil right now, but it was for a good purpose, I promise. Zuma's muscles bunched to spring at him, but the Rocky gently touched his paw. 2. What? He deserves. As Zuma looked into his eyes, his heart melted. Rocky gently shook his head. Thanks for the support though, Rocky said, looking into Zuma's semi-golden eyes. Zuma calmed down a little, but if looks could kill, Michael would be dead, God or not. You can't really be mad at him, because if I was in his place, I'd probably do the same thing, conceded Rocky. Michael relaxed visibly. He spoke quickly, moving on from that topic before Zuma tried to bite his face off. So to answer number 3, it's because Mears charged me, through his memories, to tell you about your past. I am simply following his last wishes. And to answer number 4, no, this is not permanent. You'll get your body back when I enter you again. Hopefully for the last time. But if you need me, you can call on me. I will always answer. Rocky walked over to his spiritual self and touched noses with him. Rocky felt a warm feeling wash over him, making him close his eyes in bliss. Thank you, he murmured. Our father knew the consequences of saving us, and like any loving father he would rather sacrifice himself for his own son. He loved us very much, I can assure you that. Michael said, closing his eyes. The light in the room began to intensify. If you ever need me, I'll be around, he said. The ceiling above opened up suddenly, and a rush of cold air swept in. But Rocky didn't even feel the chill as he stepped back from Michael. A black storm cloud formed directly over them, churning and boiling in rage. What's going on? Asked Rocky. It's time for me to reconnect with you. But not like I did the last time. This amulet I wear prohibits me from allowing Mears's power to flow into you, and as long as I wear it, it never will. But it also allows me to enter you freely, provided there's enough heavenly energy in the place I'm at. So before I merge with you again, I am going to take it off. I've learned that the power sickness is something that you can control, as long as you hold on to your emotions with an iron grip. I've learned to do it well enough to take it off long enough for us to become one again. The wind began to whistle. Keep this safe, and until you can control your emotions, never take it off, he warned. Is this you doing this? Asked Rocky. Yes, I'm conjuring up the bolt of Mears. It's the only thing powerful enough to fuse Mears's power with you. Will this hurt? Asked Rocky. No, it will actually feel very pleasant. But you must keep your mind open, or that could change very quickly. Zuma, Michael said, pawing at his amulet. Yes, he said, only a little bitterly now. Put this around Rocky the moment the strike is over, said Michael, taking off the amulet. Rocky looked at him as he tried hard to think peaceful thoughts. Lightning began to circle him, controlled, but not for long. Remember, keep an open mind, he said, closing his eyes, holding Rocky's paw with his. Zuma, back up, said Rocky. You wouldn't survive the blast. Remember the amulet. Then Michael raised both paws to the heavens, then slammed them down on the meteorite floor. Instantly the same beam that rebirthed Mears engulfed the two. It was shocking at first, but then it felt very good, like taking a deep breath after being underwater for a long time. Rocky and Michael lifted into the air about 10 feet of the ground and began to revolve around each other, faster and faster and faster. They went so fast they blurred together. Rocky, who was trying to stay calm and open-minded, risked opening an eye. Michael was very quickly disappearing, said one last thing to him before the fusion was complete. Even with the chain on, try to control your emotions. The power that isn't held back will be expressed by them, and then he was gone. He was just a small white orb in front of him. Then the orb formed into an arrow and pierced straight into his heart. His heartbeat was so fast it felt like it was about to explode. The fusion was complete. The lightning stopped and Rocky fell lightly on his paws. I feel so good. So much power. Rocky's fur blazed in green fire. He began to feel delirious. I can't control it. Lightning began to circulate its master, striking in random arcs around him. The walls began to shake and crumble. His powers were out of his control. A strong wind began to circle overhead. An earthquake started under their feet, causing the floor to crack and split. Rocky put his paws over his head, trying to gain some control. But it was useless. He couldn't control anything anymore. I might as well just give in to it. Then suddenly a figure jumped from a nearby ledge. Rocky, stop this, Zuma said. As he neared Rocky, he slipped the amulet over his furry friend's neck. Slowly, its effects became evident in Rocky. The lightning and fire around him were extinguished. The wind very slowly began to calm down. The ground still shook, and Rocky's once hazel eyes were two flaming orbs of emerald green fire. Zuma slammed him to the ground, rolling on top of him. Get a hold of yourself, he exclaimed. Get off of me, shouted Rocky. Rocky, look at me. Rocky's head snapped in his direction, eyes blazing. Zuma was looking at him with tears in his eyes. Don't you remember me? Hell, do you remember yourself? He placed his paws on top of Rocky, pressing him against the floor. I know you're in there somewhere. Come back to me, Rocky. Suddenly the amulet took full control. And Rocky came back to his senses. The ground ceased shaking and the wind halted its tantrum. Zuma, why are you on top of me again? Why, what, where are we? He mumbled. Zuma looked at him with tears sliding down his cheeks, falling without a sound against Rocky's gray fur. Rocky, it's like you lost yourself. You looked like you were fighting something inside you. Then you just unleashed a portion of your power. It looked like you were going to bring the whole place down. But when I looked into your eyes, I didn't see your normal shy look. No, you looked like you wanted to tear me apart. I've never seen you so out of control. Zuma, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Rocky said, reaching out a paw to calm down Zuma. Zuma leaned into his touch, collapsing on his chest. Don't do that ever again, he cried into his best friend's chest. I thought I'd lost you. Zuma, listen to me. Rocky said fiercely. I don't care if I'm a god, demigod, or mortal, I would never hurt you, and that's never going to change, he said, putting as much power into his voice as possible. Stop doing this to me, making me worry so, said Zuma wearily. I'll do my very best, replied Rocky. We're going home now, Zuma, follow me, said Rocky, pulling the emotionally unstable chocolate lab off of him. Zuma nodded and followed Rocky as they walked through the corridors of the room, retracing their steps back to the place they'd originally entered in. The door above them was shut. Rocky Simplify flicked a paw and the hatch opened up wide. You first, said Rocky. How? Asked Zuma. Jump, said Rocky, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Zuma looked perplexed, but tried to jump anyway. To his surprise, the moment his paws left the ground, he was whisked up to the top like he was in a high-speed elevator. "Wee," he squealed in delight. When he made it to the top, he looked down at Rocky. "Come on up. It's fun." But Rocky wasn't there. "Hello," he asked. "Right, here's Zuma." Zuma whipped around quickly. Rocky was right behind him, nonchalantly licking his paws. "Ha. Ha ha, very funny. I'm not even going to ask how you got there. Now let's get off this god-forsaken island," Zuma said, casting a wry glance in Rocky's direction. Rocky smirked at him. Rocky and Zuma soon left the secret room far behind them as they walked through the snow. The snow melted a little ways ahead of them, allowing for easy travel. As they neared the water's edge, Rocky simply kept walking. As he stepped on the water, a path of ice spread out from him about 5 feet in all directions. "Don't just stand there, Zuma, let's go," said Rocky. Zuma tentatively stepped into the water. His own sheet of ice spread out from him. "This is really cool walkie," said Zuma, trotting to catch up with Rocky, who was still moving forward. After a little bit of walking, Rocky stopped. "One last thing I need to do." Rocky turned around and raised a paw, slowly bring it down. The island behind them began to sink. "Why are you doing this?" asked Zuma. "No one can ever know about this place. We're the only ones who know about it, and that's how I intend to keep it." Rocky didn't even look visibly exhausted. Soon, the island sunk far below the ocean depths, accessible only to Rocky. Rocky placed his paw down and began walking again, Zuma quickly following him. "Hey, how are you taking this news?" asked Zuma. "Honestly, I have no idea. I feel like I could have changed so many things about my life if only I'd known sooner." "You mean being locked up and tortured, White?" asked Zuma gently. "Yeah, but if only I had known, I could have saved him." A tear slipped down Rocky's cheek, freezing upon contact with the ice. "Save who?" "Marcus." Rocky turned away and tried to put on a stern face, but it was clear that he was trying to hold in his emotions. 4. "Rocky, you never did finish telling me that story." Rocky took a deep breath. "Jason Wright," he spat the words with such venom Zuma looked up at him, a little worried. "After my little burning episode, Jason always saved me for the worst treatment he could think of. I had been in captivity for 3 years. And I hated it. Jason really loved to save the most painful treatment for me. He said he loved my screams more than anyone else. I hated giving him the satisfaction, but every time he picked me for the day, I always pleaded for mercy, even though I knew he had none to give. He was insane. Crazy. Stark raving mad. I almost felt a little sorry for him. Losing your mother like that completely screwed his mind up. But I can only feel but so sorry for him. Which was none at all. One day, he came in smiling. Okay, it's time to pick today's game. He had since invented the wheel of torture with all his devilish games on them. There were around 100 or so on it. The man was constantly adding to his wheel. He spun the wheel and every animal in the room held its breath. The needle stopped on the one with a picture of a nail on it. Okay, my pets. We're playing Razor's Edge. Who wants to play? He said in a sing-song voice. After being abused for so long, there were no loyalties anymore. Every animal looked after himself. That is except for Jesse, Marcus, and Rocky. The more they went through, the more they vowed to stay together. They had for the past 3 years been trying to figure out how to open up the locks on their cages. So far no luck, but they were getting close. Every night they practiced trying. One of these days they were going to figure it out. Their claws hurt from the overuse, but they didn't care. Every night for 3 years, they had practiced. Rocky and Marcus had already figured out how to open theirs, but Jessie couldn't seem to figure it out. "Just leave without me," it had said one night. "No. No matter what happens, we stick together," Marcus firmly said. "Yeah, you're our friend. If we are getting out, it's together or not at all," said Rocky. "You guys are really awesome friends. You know that, right?" Jessie said. "You could stand to say it more," said Marcus. Every pup laughed at that. But now, everyone but them had turned on each other. No one worked together to come up with a plan. It was every animal for himself. I haven't picked Rocky in a while. His wow meant yesterday, he tortured Rocky every day, so I'm going to pick you." The three had seen this happen so many times, but now when it happened, they no longer screamed, telling him to let whoever go. There was still pain at seeing such abuse, but no, it was just a dull aching in the back of their minds. Marcus and Jessie both looked at Rocky with much sadness in their eyes. They hated seeing abuse happen to anyone, but it hurt more when it was one of their own. Jason picked up Rocky's cage and unlocked it. Rocky didn't even try to stop him. He was picked up and cuffed to the cold, steel table. "I'm sure you'll enjoy this game a lot." "Oh, did I say you? I meant me," he said, with a devilish smirk. P.S. This is where the chapter goes T+, edging towards M. You've been warned. Rocky just whined, "Just get it over with, you sick man." "Let's get on with it then." A press of a button and a whole bed of nails pierced into Rocky's back, but not very deep, causing him to scream in pain. "H-h-h-h," came his blood-curdling cry. Jessie worked at the lock even harder than before, but it couldn't get it to open. Panic mixed with determination dominated Jessie's snout as it tried to open the steel cage. As Rocky eventually adjusted to the pain, but he still whined a little. "That's to keep you in place." Jason whipped on a long thin razor blade. He cut a small nick in Rocky's ear, causing him to whimper in pain. Jason's demonic smile firmly planted on his lips, drew a long thin line down his second ear. This second cut drew blood, causing Rocky to pant and howl in pain. Blood dripped down his ear and onto the side of his face. Jason pressed the razor on one side of Rocky's furry, soft and sensitive belly, and pressed down the razor, and slowly but deliberately drew a gash horizontally across it. Rocky barked and howled. He tried to push off of the table, but that just caused him more pain. The nails weren't in there deep, but if you moved it still hurt. Blood spurted from the wounds in his side, coating the razor, Jason's hand, and the steel table in blood. "Yes, this is what I like to see," Jason said, placing his hands on either side of the cut, pulling the flesh apart further. He placed the razor on Rocky's leg and quickly drew it down. He sliced down to the bone, increasing Rocky's suffering further. He sliced multiple shallow cuts on Rocky's neck, causing the viscous crimson liquid to drip down his chest. He added a few more lacerations to Rocky's velvety ears, causing blood to drip down Rocky's face. Then he moved to the base of Rocky's tail and drew a long slit from top to bottom. Blood splashed onto the floor, dripping from the table and making a small puddle up under them. Jason then moved to Rocky's most private area. "No, please no. Anywhere but there." Rocky screamed in complete terror. Well, you have suffered a lot today. I guess I'll just put you back in your cage," Jason said, drawing the razor away. Then his eyes gleamed devilishly. "Not." He jammed the blade right into Rocky's croup. Rocky's howl of pain was the worst he'd ever let out. "Oh whoa." Jason sliced up Rocky's furry balls in a frenzy, blood splashing all over him. Rocky just about passed out from the pain. He felt so violated. Jason put away his razor, watching Rocky's lifeblood pour out onto the ground. My. You're a mess. Let's get you cleaned off. Jason clicked another button on his remote, and large glass walls rose from the sides of the table, confining Rocky in. Rocky's blood pooled in the glass walls. Jason pressed another button, and the nails wrenched out of Rocky's back, spilling even more blood. The handcuffs around Rocky's paws unhooked. Rocky could soon die from blood loss, but he had enough in him. Jason pressed another button and gallons of boiling water began to fill up the tank, turning a bright red, and it mixed with Rocky's blood. The glass walls stopped rising and the walls came together into a point. Rocky was close to passing out from blood loss, but the boiling water shocked him awake. 2. Help me. Oh God, save me. There's no God, but there is a devil. And guess what? He made me. The water was now up to Rocky's waist. Rocky was being cooked alive. Soon the water reached the roof of the tank, and Rocky had to hold his breath. Please. If there's really is a God looking down on me, let me die quickly. Rocky thought. Then Jason was taken down to the ground. 2. What the? He began. Jesse, the remote, turn it off. Marcus shouted. Jesse had finally unlocked the lock with its claws, and it wasted no time in jumping out, Marcus right behind it. Marcus was clawing at the man with his claws in a fury. Jesse jumped up and snatched the remote from Jason with its teeth. Jesse smashed the red stop button with its claws. Then everything happened at once. Jason jumped up, pulling a machete from his belt, slashing at Marcus. Boiling water mixed with blood fell on the floor. Rocky tumbled out of the tank, unconscious and bleeding. Jesse ran over to him, slapping him in the face. Rocky! Get up! Jesse screamed in his face. Rocky groggily woke up, looking at Jesse. Jesse, get out of here, he said weakly. Rocky, if you don't run now, you will die, okay? Fight the pain. I know it hurts, but Marcus can't fight much longer, and if we don't get out of here, we're all going to die. Somehow, Rocky stood up on 3 paws, blood gushing everywhere, and bolted for the door. Jesse, remote in mouth, and Marcus right behind him. The door was locked. Oh, damn it, said Marcus. Jesse spat out the remote and looked at it. Apparently, the whole building was controlled by the remote. Jesse pressed the button with the icon of a door on it in green. Suddenly, the door opened. Then all the animals began to whimper, screaming for them to let them out. We can't help you. I'm sorry, said Jesse. The dogs ran down the corridor and made random turns. Red lights began to flash and an alarm went off. The dogs have escaped, came Jason's voice. Find them, people swarmed the building, looking for the dogs. But the dogs had luck on their side, none of them could catch them. As they ran through the buildings, they found the main door and Jesse unlocked it. They ran outside, taking a deep breath of fresh air. There's the road, shouted Marcus. The only thing separating them from freedom was a large steel gate. Marcus immediately began to dig, and Jesse spat out the remote to help him. It was all Rocky could do to stand, running on pure adrenaline now. Luck was still holding out for them. It had rained hard yesterday, and it was easy to dig a hole. Though you would escape, said a voice behind them. Jason was running towards them with his long, wicked machete. Keep digging. I'll hold him, barked Jesse. Jesse spun and launched itself at Jason, all the pain and hurt stored inside of it coming out. Its attack was quick, biting and clawing at the man. Jason was stunned for a second, then began to fight back. He was very good with a machete, and Jesse had to be quick on its paws. Then 2 things happened at the same time. Marcus finished the hole, and Rocky had already squirmed through. Jason kicked Jesse hard, then grabbed it with his hand. Please, help me, it screamed. Marcus rushed back to save it, biting Jason hard in the leg. Jason howled in pain and dropped Jesse. Jesse ran through the hole to join Rocky. Marcus was right behind them when Jason's thick, meaty hand grabbed him by the throat. Go, without me. I'll be fine. Marcus choked, thrashing in Jason's grasp. Pups, you can either come back with me or I will make sure Marcus takes your punishment along with his, Jason said. Marcus stopped thrashing and stared at Rocky and Jesse with a level eye. Go, now, he said. Rocky and Jesse ran away as fast as they could. I'll be back for your Marcus, I'll be back, shouted Rocky. They ran for about 15 minutes before stopping. Adrenaline rush gone, Rocky collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Luckily, they had just passed by a fire station. Jesse ran back to get them. The firemen immediately followed it. Long story short, after a 3-week recovery in the hospital, Rocky recovered. On the day he was to be sent to adoption, Jesse snuck into the hospital and freed Rocky. The two were on the run for several days. They eventually ran right out of the city and came to a place named Adventure Bay. Rocky stopped his story, trembling. Lightning bolts began to surround him. I will find him. And I will set him free, he shouted. Zuma placed his paw over his. And when you do, I'm coming with you, he said fiercely. Rocky just nodded his head slightly. Zuma, I think it best if no one but us knew who I am and what we've been through tonight. I hate to lie, but that's what we're going to do. I agree. I won't say anything to anyone ever. I swear on my life, said Zuma. Thanks, Zuma, you're a really great friend. Zuma blushed a little bit at the compliment. You really think so, he said shyly. I know so, he said firmly. You're like a brother to me. 4. Rocky, I really like, never mind, Zuma said, thinking better of it and turning his head away, smiling. They reached Adventure Bay's beach at midnight. They both ducked into the bay water and laid out on the sand. Rocky hid his amulet in his gray fur before activating his pup tag. Ryder, are you there? Rocky, exclaimed Ryder. There were dark circles up under his eyes. Where are you? I'll send Marshall and Chase to come and pick you up. At the beach. Rocky said weakly. He'd always be sneaky and cunning, always able to get away with a lie and sound convincing. Don't move, I'm sending them over now. Thank God you're alive. Is Zuma with you? I'm white here. Wider. Zuma said, copying Rocky's weak voice. Then Rocky cut the connection. He'll think my pup tag is broken. Pretend to be unconscious, okay, said Rocky, closing his eyes. Yeah, okay, said Zuma, following suit. Okay. Rocky's transformation from god to demigod is complete. Rocky finishes telling his past to Zuma. Yep, I thought of the most horrid things I could think of. Fire in a hospital. Rocky and Zuma were placed in the same bed in the hospital. They'd pretended to be unconscious the whole time. When they reached the hospital and came to, the team leader and all the pups cheered, then began talking all at once. Are you okay? Asked Sky. What happened? Asked Chase. Why did you push me away? Asked Ryder. Zuma was about to say something when he heard a small voice in his head. Leave this to me, Kay? Okay, Zuma thought back. Rocky raised a paw, and immediately there was silence in the room. When Zuma dove in the water, he managed to save me. But currents were too strong for him to control. The waves took us from one place to another. We barely managed to stay above water. We clung on to some driftwood we'd found floating past. Eventually, the storm ended and we were washed up on the beach. "Well, thank goodness that you're safe," said Ryder, scratching Zuma up under the neck. When he moved to Rocky, Rocky turned his head away, not wanting Ryder to find the amulet, still hidden up under his fur. "What's wrong?" asked Ryder, perplexed. My neck got cut during our ordeal. It's getting better, but it still hurts to touch it." Ryder moved his hand away from his neck and scratched up under Rocky's ear. "Yeah, right there," panted Rocky. "You two are such good pups," said Ryder. "You could have died doing your job, but you two still did it anyway. I'm very proud of you." "All of you," said Ryder, looking at all the pups. "Thanks, Ryder," responded Zuma. You pups get some sleep. Marshall will run a health diagnostic in the morning." "Let's go, pups," said Ryder, turning away, after one last scratch under the ear for Zuma and Rocky, who enjoyed it immensely. "Bye, guys." "See you tomorrow," said Marshall. "Bye," Rocky and Zuma chorused, smirking at each other. When they'd gone, Rocky and Zuma smirked at each other. "Well played, Rocky," said Zuma, staring into Rocky's eyes. "Thank you, it's a gift," Rocky said shyly, looking away. "It's time for bed," said the kind nurse, walking into the room. She turned off the lights. "Sleep tight, pups. And again, thanks for saving my uncle," she said, gently closing the door behind her. 1. "Isn't Sharon nice, Zuma?" Rocky asked, turning to face him. Yeah, she is," he said, "just not as nice as you." Rocky blushed, eyes just barely flickering. When Rocky looked at Zuma again, it occurred to him that Zuma had never looked away from him. "What's wrong, buddy?" Rocky asked. "Oh, nothing. Just thinking," Zuma said, hurriedly looking away. Zuma felt two small, furry paws wrap around him. What are you doing?" Zuma said, glancing in Rocky's direction. "Snuggling with my best friend." "Come on, loosen up a bit," he murmured, placing his head over Zuma's heart. "Besides, you know you want to." Soon Rocky felt Zuma's slightly bigger paws wrapped around his waist and felt his chin rest on his head. "That's better," he mumbled. Rocky's eyes began to glow a little. Zuma's snout bent close to his, and Rocky looked into his eyes dreamily. He could feel Zuma's breath the closer he got to him. Is he trying to? No. He wouldn't. Rocky thought, turning his head away. "Dude, what's going with your eyes?" Zuma said, looking down at Rocky. "Nothing, just trying to keep my powers in check. It's not easy keeping them in." "I'm not used to them yet," said Rocky, eyes flickering, two identical flames of fire. "As much as I like you eyes, if anyone sees this, our secret's out. I thought this stuff only happened when you emotions got out of control." "Yeah, well, it's your fault," huffed Rocky. "How?" asked Zuma, yawning. "You're the one who keeps making me feel so happy," he finished, pulling Zuma a little closer. As if to prove his point, Rocky's eyes glowed a little brighter. 4. "I do?" Zuma asked, semi-consciously. "Yeah, you really do." Rocky fell asleep after this last comment, the light slowly fading from his eyes as he entered La La Land, cute little snores emitting from his throat. Yeah, well, the feelings are mutual," he whispered in Rocky's ears, making his eyes flash once. Zuma kissed the top of his head, then fell asleep, content with his life. Red lights flashed overhead as Rocky, Marcus, and Jesse ran over the cold concrete floor. They panted, running as fast as they could to the exit, Rocky making a trail of blood as he went. "Find them! Find those dogs!" shouted Jason over the PA. Footsteps were heard behind them. "Jesse, quickly, the door!" shouted Marcus. A siren went off, blasting in Rocky's ears. "I can't find the button!" Jesse screamed. Rocky fell down, into much pain. Marcus ran over to him. Rocky began to pass out. "Rocky, wake up! Wake up!" he shouted. The siren was louder now, its screams piercing Rocky's ears. "Wake up! Rocky! Rocky!" Rocky's eyes snapped open. The siren was still blasting. Red lights were still overhead. "Rocky, wake up! There's a fire! Wake up, we need to get out of here!" Rocky's quickly booting mind recognized the voice as Zuma's. Adrenaline rushed through his veins as he sat up, trying to quickly orient himself. Smoke was pouring in the room through the vents. Rocky jumps off the bed and padded to the windows. The fire was on the first floor. And it was spreading. Zuma joined him at the window. They were on the highest floor in the building, the 10th. "Okay, let's go, Zuma," Rocky said, shattering the window with his mind. He simply walked out the window and onto thin air, waiting for Zuma to follow. He didn't. "What? We can't leave, there are hundreds of people in this building that need us." "No, we've gotta go help them, we're the Paw Patrol." Rocky walked back into the burning building. "You're right. We'll help those who we can." There was an explosion, and the PA system came on. "Attention! The first floor has been compromised. The whole building is going to come down. I repeat, collapse is imminent. Get out of the building now." The top floor slowly began to tilt to the side. Rocky and Zuma ran to the door. "Aw man, the knob is too high," shouted Zuma in fear. "TSK. Who needs a knob when you can do this?" Rocky swept his paw to the side and the door broke free from its hinges, falling forward. Zuma wasted no time running through it, Rocky at his side. Smoke hung in thick clouds above them and Zuma and Rocky quickly began to cough. Zuma fell down, coughing too hard to run. Rocky took a deep breath and blew the smoke away from them. Suddenly the air was fresh. "Is there anyone still on this floor?" yelled Zuma. There was no response, all the way down to the 3rd floor. The room was so full of people it made Rocky's head spin. The 1st floor caught fire to the 2nd floor. "There's no way out," said the man in front of them. "Zuma, what do we do? The building's coming down." Rocky thought, starting a mental conversation with him. "What do we do?" "You are going to put out the fire for goodness sake." Though Zuma, exasperatedly. "Yeah, I don't know how to do that." Rocky thought guiltily. "What do you mean you don't know how?" "I got my powers yesterday. I don't know how to do everything yet." "Maybe you can't stop the fire with your mind, but you learned cryokinesis yesterday. You can put out the fire with that." Zuma thought. "But what about my secret? I'm not going to become the government's new toy. There are more important things right now. Why don't we just wait for the fire department?" Though Rocky weakly. "Do you even see the smoke in the air? They'll die before that happens." "Oh, in case you forgot, if the first floor gives out, we'll all die in the quash. So, Rocky, it's either death by smoke, or quashing." "You pick," said Zuma angrily, ears flat against his head, hackles up. Rocky as Rocky looked into Zuma's eyes, he remembered the pets he had to leave locked up with Jason. He remembered how much he'd hated leaving them there. But there was nothing he could do. Another explosion rocked the building, and flames shot up from the second floor, beginning to burn the third floor. People began to scream. Zuma stopped facing down Rocky, and his paws lit up. A blast of cold water gushed from his paws, putting out the fire that began to burn the room. "Rocky, help me," cried Zuma. The fire was too hot, it was evaporating the water before it even got close. People began to look in Rocky's direction. Then something in Rocky snapped. His fur burst into green flame, and his pupils turned to an emerald green fire. "No more. Not again. I'm not leaving anyone behind this time." The air around Rocky turned cold as the Arctic. The floors and walls in all directions began to become covered in ice. Zuma fell back to join him, wetting the floors and walls, making the ice spread even faster. The people began to cheer. 3. "We're saved. Hooray," they shouted. Rocky walked straight into the fire, and a massive blast of ice emitted from him. A strong Arctic wind began to blow, and the people who were sweating in the heat began to shiver in cold. In between the fire and ice, one could have seen Rocky, fighting for control. Zuma never left his side and ran straight into the fire with him, always fearless. The wind grew in intensity, swirling around its master. Rocky then pointed a paw with deadly accuracy at the flames. The wind left him, and the fire was immediately extinguished. Rocky began to pant under the strain. The fire on the second floor was cleared. Rocky jumped right into the inferno below. There was another explosion, as Rocky's ice mixed with a frigid wind. Someone pulled out their phone and began recording. Rocky blew the wind straight into the fire. The fire was strongest on the first floor, and it was resisting Rocky's cooling wind. Zuma began herding the people off of the second floor, down to the first, where Rocky was still putting out the flames. Zuma helped Rocky, shooting massive jets of water everywhere. With Zuma's help, the fire was completely extinguished. Everyone cheered and stormed into the room. Just then, the steel supports holding the whole building up snapped, and the whole building came crashing down. Rocky's reflexes were stunning. In the blink of an eye, the steel supports were replaced with frozen ones that quickly began to crumble. 1. "Everyone, go," shouted Rocky, holding his paw up. The entire weight of the building rested on Rocky's shoulders, and the strain was evident on his face. The fire around him raged even more, as he siphoned more energy from his amulet. People rushed through the doors and out of the building. When the last person was gone, another explosion rippled across the air, reigniting the entire first floor. But how? Thought Zuma. Then he saw it. There were multiple bombs rigged across the floor. Someone had set this whole thing up. Someone purposely set this whole thing in motion. This was a trap. Zuma reeled back, standing right beside Rocky, who wasn't straining anymore, having siphoned more energy from his amulet. Fire engulfed Rocky completely. As Zuma stepped through it, only then could he see him. Rocky's eyes no longer held any spark of familiarity. They were just cold and calculating. Lightning, real lightning, slowly began to circulate around Rocky. Zuma had to dodge the random lightning arcs to avoid being electrocuted. Rocky had siphoned more energy than he could handle. He wasn't power sick, but he couldn't focus enough. No, Rocky, no, not now," shouted Zuma, frustrated. Fire all around them, the whole building about to come down, lightning arcing from Rocky randomly, and ice in the middle. So many elements. Too many for Rocky to control. His cooling wind began to swirl around him, pushing Zuma back. Then the earth began to shake. Zuma ran through the wind and found Rocky at the eye of the storm, head shaking wildly, paws over his eyes. "Get out of here," he said. Rocky, I'm here. I'm here. Calm down. Zuma said in a soothing voice, placing his paws around Rocky. Rocky stopped shaking his head and looked at Zuma, fearfully. It's okay, you can stop now, you saved everyone, said Zuma, tightly hugging him. You have to calm down. Rocky's amulet shined a bright green, then suddenly, everything stopped. The amulet had reclaimed Rocky's powers. Zuma? Thanks, I knew I had to stop the roof from coming down, and I overstepped with my powers. Thanks for saving me, he said, hugging Zuma back fiercely. No problem, no, let's get out of here. The two began to race for the exit. Right before they made it, the ice supports snapped. Rocky, Zuma warned. Rocky slammed his paw down, and a sonic blast blew Zuma through the door just as the building came down. Zuma landed very roughly, scraping against the pavement. But that was nothing compared to the pain in his heart. Rocky, he barked, tears streaming down his face. There was a massive crowd of people gathered around the building. The fire station had finally arrived. Spraying down the building. Police lights flashed in Zuma's eyes. Someone picked him up. Zuma began to squirm and tried to bite the person when he looked up and saw it was Ryder. Tears began to run down Ryder's face at Zuma's next words. Rocky's still in Thu. I couldn't save him, he screamed, his voice full of self-loathing. Ryder was so shocked, he fell to his knees, dropping Zuma. Zuma ran from the fire, tears streaming from his eyes. Then he ran right into someone. Or more correctly, some pup. Rocky? Rocky. Zuma gushed, squeezing him tightly. Rocky's fur was singed, but otherwise, he looked all right. Rocky squeezed Zuma so tight it surprised even him. I'm okay, Zuma. I'm fine, he shouted. How are you even here? I saw you get crushed by the building. I was, but I learned to do something on the spot. Zuma's paws slid right through Rocky, causing him to fall on the ground. What? He said, looking up at him. Rocky was just a thin silhouette. Intangibility, he finished. Turning tangible, he grabbed onto Zuma, pulling him into another hug, tail wagging furiously. It was a setup, cried Zuma. I saw it. Someone wigged bombs across the floor. That's what started the feud. His tail was wagging just as fast. We'll figure out why later, said Rocky, tears streaming down his cheeks as well. You and I are the only things that matter right now, he finished, crying freely into Zuma's fur. And this is the state Ryder found them in when he went to find where Zuma had run off to. Breaking news! The local hospital in Adventure Bay has erupted in flames. Police have confirmed the unthinkable. It was a planned bombing. Everyone who was on life support died soon after the blast. There have been, this just in. People who came from the burning building say that a dog saved them. No one knows who this canine is, but one man managed to get a video. Take a look. A video rolled across Ryder's mission screen, which was now operating as a TV. The video was very messy and was only 60 seconds long. It showed a ball of green fire extinguishing the flames with a breath of ice. The reporter came back on. This dog is suspected of rigging the explosives, though it is unclear why he would save everyone afterward. If you know anything about his whereabouts, contact. Ryder cut the connection. Ryder had called everyone up to the lookout, and Zuma and Rocky sat beside each other again. It was exactly 12 hours after the bombing occurred. Rocky and Zuma had quickly been checked out by Marshall before the meeting. Pups, as the Paw Patrol, we are the police's prime suspects for this crime. You six are the only pups in Adventure Bay with powers. As much as I hate to say it, I will. One of you is that pup right there, said Ryder, pointing to the screen. And I intend to find out who. I will go in order, saving Zuma and Rocky for last. Chase. What were you doing at exactly midnight? Ryder said, pointing at him. Chase began to tremble. I was in my pup house. Ryder, sir, sleeping. And what were you doing, Sky? What are we gonna do? Thought Rocky as the interrogation went on. I don't know. We can't give away your secret, but I don't know if we can lie our way through this one. Though Zuma, fearfully. Let me do the talking, okay? Though Rocky firmly, quickly think up an excuse. Rocky and Zuma. What were you doing at exactly midnight? Questioned Ryder. All the pups looked at him. Zuma and I were sleeping, sir. When we heard the sirens go off, we ran through the building towards the door. Zuma and I managed to get out before the roof came down. Is that everything, Zuma? Ryder asked, turning his brown lab puppy. Zuma wasn't very good at lying, though he was better than Marshall, who couldn't lie to save his life. Yes, Zuma said weakly. That's funny because I remember you telling me Rocky didn't make it, that you couldn't quote-unquote save him. Would you like to explain that? Well. Zuma looked helplessly in Rocky's direction. Then Rocky had an idea. Okay, I'll tell you, barked Rocky, getting the attention of the whole patrol. What are you doing? Though screamed Zuma. Trust me. Zuma swore he could hear the smirk in his voice. I know who it was. It was Copycat, he finished. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. 1. It wasn't me. I was framed, screamed Copycat, struggling to get away from Chase. 1. Save it for the judge, Cat, shouted Chase into his megaphone. The cat was soon shoved into the police van, Rocky and Zuma watching. This doesn't feel right. I don't like this at all. Even if he is evil. Thought Zuma. I know, neither do I. But we can't let anyone know who I am. Replied Rocky. Why not? What are you so afraid of? Said Zuma looking into his eyes. Anyone who happened to be looking at them at this moment would think they are having an epic staring contest. I'll be seen as a threat to the government. They test me, probe me, try to take my power. And if they find my amulet, there won't be a government to threaten. 'Cause they'll be dead. Rocky finished darkly. So we frame him? Though Zuma weakly. I don't like it, but yes, there's nothing we can do. Except. You can still get out of this, Zuma. If the grits ever hit the fan, you can tell them I forced you, mind-controlled you. They'd believe that. Rocky thought, looking away. No, we're in this together. No matter what, I'll have your back. Rocky looked up at Zuma and smiled as they headed back to the lookout. Jason Wright watched the news in complete dismay. Damn it. I wasn't able to kill him. I've got to find out who that hero was. I need to get him out of the way. Jason smiled, reclining in his chain. Then, I can kill Rocky. Or hurt him some more. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. Jason twirled his machete around with one hand. Yes, Rocky, watch your tail.
Oh, oh God. Oh, that this story is getting really creepy. Oh, this story is getting even a little bit too crazy. Woo! Ui, 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 ui. So, I was thinking now, I be, if you guys give me just 2 minutes and I be live on my console doing the Pop Tour live stream Pop Tour World. And I have it here. And yes, I'll be right back, guys, on another live stream for doing then the Pop Tour World. Then give me 2 minutes and I'll be right